Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
All eyes are on JJ McCarthy as the Vikings enter training camp. Also, Trey Hendrickson is officially holding out until he gets a new deal. And Jerry Jones needs to keep his mouth shut. Good luck with that.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
As training camp opens around the NFL, maybe the most interesting man in the NFL plays quarterback in Minnesota. JJ McCarthy, we don't know. We don't know. Luke Braun from Locked On.
Interesting is a great word for him.
Maybe he knows. Luke, this is a quarterback from Michigan who did not play a ton of high volume passing offense at Michigan, missed his entire rookie season with an injury, and now gets to quarterback a team that won 14 games last year and is loaded for bear after an offseason that they added some big name pieces. What's next? Where do we go here?
I mean, they've run through any excuse a QB will have, right? They've bolstered the O-line. They have one of the best pass-catching trios, like arguably the best pass-catching trio in the entire NFL. They have stacked everything around JJ McCarthy that they can. This was always the plan. It was always get a rookie. He's going to be cheap, spend a bunch of money, and get everything around him. Unfortunately, he gets hurt, so they couldn't go to that right away. But you saw what this apparatus did for Sam Darnold. Mm-hmm. So now it is time to turn the keys over to the young kid, see what he's got. He was waiting in the wings. There was this big article on ESPN about all the stuff he did last year while he was rehabbing, how they approached him in the meetings, the hour that Kevin O'Connell set aside every week to make sure he was still, developing that relationship and monitoring the development of the most important long-term asset that, as with any drafted quarterback in the top 10, Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell's jobs are tied to this guy. So they made sure that they set aside some time to make sure that was still on track while his knee healed up. Well, he's back. He's doing the thing. He's here at camp. And now by Saturday, when the fans get to camp, everybody is going to finally get to see exactly what sort of package they have here. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of, we don't know how he's going to translate from what he did in college to what he's doing in the pros.
And I don't know that we know the Vikings know, because until you get out there and get to see it, like it's just different than mental reps.
Yeah. And they've come out and said that. They've been like, hey, we've never seen him. Therefore, we have Sam Darnold here. Therefore, we, had a conversation with Aaron Rodgers. We had a conversation with Daniel Jones, who's now the front runner in Indy. I guess that's happening. Sure, man.
Well, and you and I were on this. You were when I asked you about this last year. The plan was Sam Darnold, and the plan was always Sam Darnold going into last season, and JJ McCarthy was going to come along at whatever pace he needed to come along. I think the question right now, is how much in his development did he move, if at all? Like, it didn't probably set him back, but it's like, okay, but how much did he actually move the ball forward?
Right. In a year where you don't get to take any real reps, you don't get to work with anybody, you're not really throwing, you're not working on your mechanics. Mentally, they managed to find ways to get a lot of work in. They had a helmet cam on Sam Darnold during practice, and then they could give him that footage so he could see how the reads looked and stuff. I'm sure that helps. But yeah, it's a little bit suspended in midair. So it's kind of like half of a rookie season. It's like I'm not treating him the way that you're treating like Cam Ward, where it's okay, you're brand new to the NFL, there's all these growing pains. You should definitely be pretty comfortable with the mental side of things, but I'm not treating him the way I'm going to treat an 8-year veteran either, where I still expect a pretty bad interception to happen. I expect him to still be testing windows that maybe he could do in college, but he can't do in the pros because guys jump on the ball a little faster. He still needs to learn those lessons the hard way. Everybody does. But so it's kind of halfway you're treating him like a functional rookie, but also you're giving him not quite as much leash as you're going to give to Jackson Dart.
But he also has all the leash because this is the plan. This is the
3 years
right now
and they're locked in on it. And they're not going to have the resources to like go get a quarterback if this is a disaster. They are living and dying on this.
But so how do you find that? And this is a question that I think, I don't know that if even Kevin O'Connell or Cristobal Mensa can even give us a real answer on, but how do you find that balance, Luke, between we want this guy to develop, we want to win now, and they expect to win now. So that seems like that's inherently at odds in some ways.
Yeah, I think the philosophy is to lower the threshold that he has to cross for the offense to be successful, right? And that means put a great O-line in front of him, put great pass catchers in there. He doesn't have to be a world beater, right? He doesn't have to do the most. He just has to operate the system, deliver things on time. And when there is pressure, he can create, he can get out of the pocket and do some spicy stuff. We saw a lot of that on 3rd and 9s at Michigan.
Saw it in the one preseason game we saw.
We saw a little bit of that too. Yeah. And it's just, get the ball where it is supposed to be and when it is supposed to be there. But you're not asking of him what like the Bengals are asking of Joe Burrow, where you have a terrible O-line in front of him and good luck getting 45 points. Like you're asking a little less of him. So I think if JJ McCarthy is just decent at quarterback, the offense can ascend to top 10 and be the kind of offense that you're watching very closely in January. And while I expect some of those growing pains to happen, and yeah, they might cost you a few games right now, I think the Vikings see themselves as in a 3-year window, and they very much are looking you directly in the eye and saying, take us seriously as a Super Bowl contender right now. And hey, if it falls flat on their face, then you get to point at them and laugh.
You can stay up to date all year on the Minnesota Vikings by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Vikings on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Bengals are letting contract disputes potentially derail their season. Before we get to that, the House versus NCAA case has reached a deal. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. After threats of lawsuits and weeks of tension, lawyers behind the House versus NCAA case have reportedly reached a deal with the NCAA and power conferences that would soften how the new College Sports Commission enforces NIL rules. Collectives and boosters had warned that the CSC's rigid oversight and delayed approvals were creating chaos and might even push schools back into paying athletes under the table. Now, the CSC is expected to treat school-linked collectives more like regular businesses. A formal statement is still pending, but it looks like the pressure worked and the NIL floodgates remain open. Over in Major League Baseball, the Reds shot themselves in the foot in a loss to the Nationals.
That is the exact way that we didn't want. And quite frankly, the exact way we were worried and we kind of thought would happen. But the way that the Reds began that series with the Washington Nationals was absolutely horrible. And it's all on the pitching staff. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast. Yes, the strength of the team for much of this season absolutely failed them against the Washington Nationals again. Fun fact, the Cincinnati Reds have allowed 25 runs in 4 games to the Washington Nationals. They've also allowed 25, and that's earned runs. There's a couple of unearned runs, but they've also allowed 25 earned runs to the St. Louis Cardinals in 7 games. For some reason, they just stopped pitching when they faced the Nationals. Brady Singer, horrible. Graham Ashcraft, horrible. Lyon Richardson, horrible. Reds really need a big bounce-back game in a bad way. A couple of games. They can't lose the series. It's just... oh, what a mess.
Ben Rice lifted the Yankees past the Blue Jays.
By far the biggest victory of the year for the Yankees, behind the biggest home run of the year from Ben Rice. I'm Brian McKeon from Locked On Yankees. They needed this win more than anything, as Anthony Volpe almost gave another game away with a big error. But hey, they got the win. They got an extra game in the standings against Toronto, and now you get Max Fried on the mound tomorrow with a chance to beat the Blue Jays in Toronto in a series, snapping their 11-game home winning streak. Again, a massive win. Big save out of Devin Williams. Luke Weaver was outstanding out of the bullpen, and maybe Cody Bellinger's best game of the year, and that's saying something with how good he's been. We'll be discussing all of it on Locked On Yankees tonight and every night the rest of the week.
And Casey Mize and the Tigers struggled against the Pirates.
The Pirates, for 2 nights in a row, actually provide run support for great pitching. Mitch Keller, the recipient tonight, as they win 8-5 over Detroit. Pittsburgh Pirates just hit the baseball today. Casey Mize got chased in this one early. It was pretty much out of reach, it felt, early on. The Tigers weren't doing much against Mitch Keller, and then boom, Rogers hits a 3-run homer and kind of put the game back into contention. And to the Pirates' credit, they pulled away again. This is Gary from Locked On Pirates. One of the biggest takeaways from this one, besides Brian Reynolds, I'm going to tentatively talk about him continuing to show progress the last few days. I think we saw a few stutter starts on that. But somebody else who's really starting to heat up is Spencer Horwitz. This is the kind of hitter we expected to see when we traded for him, before the surgery, before the late start to the season. It's back-to-back games with 3 hits now for Spencer Horwitz, looking much more comfortable at the plate, hitting the ball hard too, and to all fields. That's more of the hitter I think we thought we were going to get. Really liked the look of Gonzalez in that 2-hole today too. That was an interesting alignment. I know they were resting Kutch, but I thought that brought something to the table. Time to move Cruz back up and back him up with Brian Reynolds again. Let's get that core back together and see if we can't resurrect this offense in the second half with what's left after the trade deadline. More on that tomorrow morning. Locked On Pirates.
The Bengals keep insisting they'll get deals done with Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart, but so far nothing's happened. Locked On Bengals host Jake Lisco and James Rapien break down the latest in the ongoing saga as Hendrickson begins his holdout from camp in pursuit of a new contract.
We unfortunately don't have any discount codes to give the Bengals when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, James, as he has left the state after Mike Brown expressed some optimism and shared his opinion that he thought it would get done, that he wanted to get it done, that he thought Trey wanted to get it done. It did not happen, unfortunately, between the last time we recorded and now as we talk in the early afternoon on Tuesday.
Holdout. Officially a holdout. Not going to be present tomorrow for their first practice on Wednesday of camp. It's expected. It's what it is. It's expected. I don't think anyone should overreact. Naturally, on social media, people are overreacting, and that's fine. It didn't feel like it was imminent. I think Mike Brown gave us his thoughts, but I never felt like during that, even if you felt optimistic, and I think we both did, that things were close, like really close. At least I didn't think it was really close and about to get done. And I would have been surprised and I will be surprised if we see Trey until the deal is done. And I think that this is what he's saying. That's why he posted the Instagram story, tagged Florida with the sunrise on Tuesday. Lets everyone know, hey, I'm in Florida.
What a funny thing to tag in an Instagram post, by the way. Florida.
Well, it's just he didn't want people to know where he lives, right? What city?
Florida.
No doubt. Yeah. Welcome to Florida, where the Bengals apparently have training camp. No. Or Texas for Shamar. Oh, no, wait. I think this is one of those things that, and you asked this yesterday, like, will Trey respond? And Trey responded. All the reporting around it, I think it's very clear. Trey has made his stance on what he wants, what he's looking for. And it's clear that the guaranteed dollars aren't there. I'm not sure that they're there anywhere when it comes to an extension right now in the Bengals and Trey. I'm not sure they've agreed to average annual value. I don't necessarily think that the years part is going to be a huge hurdle, but it is a hurdle, especially when you're talking about guaranteed money being the biggest hurdle. And everyone has reported that. Not shocked given the Bengals history. but this is where they are. And so I'm not going to fret as we record this on July 22nd about Trey not being there for day one of training camp on Wednesday, because he's not going to be there, barring something really unforeseen. I don't really think that's a big deal. I do know, and I can back this up, Trey does want to get a deal done. Absolutely. So Mike Brown is right there. Mike clearly wants to get a deal done. He said it to everybody. And so it's going to be about these two sides bending some. When will that happen is my question. I don't care that Trey's not in camp in the third week of July, essentially, in the first week of camp, but I do want him there a month from now. I do think it's going to start to matter as we get closer toward the games mattering. And so that would be my focus if I'm the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson. He's got to stay ready. I have no doubt that he will. And the Bengals, they have to figure out the way to find common ground here, because I do think that it's more on their end of not being willing to give the guarantees that Trey's looking for.
And I'm sure Trey will hit the ground running. I'm with you there. But I do think that while it's not necessarily a change, like this is kind of expected and it's not something to panic over, it's still far from ideal, right? Like we're not saying that it's good. We're not saying that everything is fine when we say it's not something to panic over, because ideally when you have a new defensive coordinator and you're doing things a little bit differently, you have everyone there so everyone's on the same page. And so the coordinators and the coaches can figure out, okay, we have Trey Hendrickson. This is how things look with Trey. This is how we can mold things around Trey, with having seen him go through the things on the field, instead of just speculating on how he's going to fit based on what he put on tape last year, based on what you think Trey Hendrickson is, and probably reasonably can expect Trey Hendrickson to be. But that also goes for Shamar Stewart. That's why it's important to have everyone as present as they can be. More important for Shamar, for reasons that we've discussed. We don't need to go into those today. But while it's not necessarily a shock that it's gotten to this point, it's not a good place to be. It's very far from ideal, obviously, and it's not where you want to be. To have him not there physically is one thing. To have the distraction is another issue with this. To have this, sixth straight year, it feels like, I don't know, infinite straight year of something that you're dealing with in training camp from a contract perspective for an important player, not something that you want to deal with, is exhausting for fans. I can tell you that for sure, based on the response that we saw on Tuesday. And it's not surprising that that's a response. They've been dealing with this stuff for years. And the concern then becomes, well, if the issue is guaranteed money, let's say they did get there on APY in years, and there's not a great reason to think they did. It sounds like they moved on APY in years. It sounds like the money did go up. The years may have gone up. If the issue is guarantees and they were dealing, okay, well, the years did go up, because if the issue is guarantees now, primarily, that's what's been reported on Tuesday. And previously, they were offering one-year deals, which was reported, I think, on Sunday. Well, if you're talking about guarantees past year one, you're probably talking about a multi-year deal at that point. So it sounds like they moved on years. If the issue is guarantees primarily, it sounds like they moved on money too. But the concern then is they never budged on guarantees for Jesse Bates. And at the time, we were thinking about the Mulligetta thing. We're thinking about, this is a precedent breaker for the Bengals. But now the Bengals have broken that precedent on non-quarterback contracts. And they did so not just for Jamar Chase, but also for T. Higgins. And from Trey's perspective, and I don't say any of this to rag on T, from Trey's perspective, they gave year 2 guaranteed money to T. Higgins after T. Higgins has been injured. Much more than Trey Hendrickson has been injured in terms of missing games, right? Trey's perspective is he was just second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, has all the sack numbers to back it up. And if T can get that, well, shouldn't I get that if I'm Trey Hendrickson? I imagine that's part of the thinking there, in addition to the consistent frustration we've heard from him over the years around not having guarantees that's left him in limbo. And that's why, given their history, it's not surprising that they're at this point. And I have concern about how it plays out, given their history with guarantees outside of year one.
Stay up to date all year on the Cincinnati Bengals by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Bengals on your favorite podcast app. And on YouTube. Coming up, Jerry Jones needs to stop taking shots at his players. Jerry Jones Jones sure loves the spotlight. In a recent press conference, Joe took shots at Micah Parsons when speaking about a potential contract extension for the Cowboys star pass rusher. Locked On NFL host Kevin Ostreicher and Lauren Cox discuss how disrespectful and unnecessary Jones' comments were.
Yeah, and again, we know Mike is extremely competitive, and he is the defense. Like Dallas's defense, Lauren, I know a couple of years ago, they're one of the best in the league. They had stars at all three levels. Mike, obviously, a very big part in that, but with injuries and guys leaving and draft picks not working out, it's been tough, and the defense has taken a big step back. I mean, the Cowboys are going to have to pay Micah a lot of money if they want him on the team in the future, and I get that. You know, guys do get injured. Like, it is what it is. And the Dak Prescott area of the comments that Jerry Jones made was, yeah, we paid Dak to be the highest paid player at his position, and then he missed 2/3 of the season. He also said that during his comments as well. So I don't know what's going on in Dallas right now, but I think the rest of the NFC East is celebrating, considering that Jerry Jones is essentially hurting his own team by making these comments.
This is basically the definition of the meme, okay, grandpa, let's get you to bed. Jerry Jones had this figured out for a long time, you know, when the Cowboys were winning. And then it became more about Jerry Jones than about really anything else. And it seems like he's lost grip with reality when it comes to the modern athlete. The reason every contract extension agreement starts with a long stretch of disagreement, that they get more contentious in Dallas than they do most other places. And in the case of someone like Dak Prescott, they had to overpay the market because they put themselves in a bad position because they just waited and waited and waited, thinking they could get a better deal or whatever. Jerry Jones is hurting the Cowboys with these comments and with his approach to paying his players. He either needs to get in touch with the way things are done now or entrust someone else to handle it. And we all know he's not going to do that. And finally, Indiana football head coach Curt Cignetti made headlines at Big Ten Media Day by throwing shade at the SEC's scheduling habits. When asked why the Hoosiers were dropping a future series with the Virginia Cavaliers, Cignetti said they're just adopting SEC scheduling philosophy, pointing out that 12 of 16 SEC teams play 3 group of 5 or FCS opponents and only 8 conference games. Critics are blasting Indiana for continuing to play an extremely weak schedule, but after last year's playoff run, Cignetti doesn't seem to be too concerned. Some people don't like it, he said. I'm more focused on these 9 conference games. That's not 9th conference game against Rutgers. It'll sneak up on you now. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what are the vibes at the Raiders training camp and Pete Carroll's first season? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.